What's up, guys? I'm Brandon Baddock, and welcome back to Disturbing the Priest. I am joined once again by Nate Fillers. What is up, Nate? How is it going?
Oh, it goes pretty well. How about yourself?
It's going. It's going. We have a very fun topic for today. This is metal bands that have changed their sound for better or worse. Um, Nate did bring up before we recorded this that didn't we do like a list of bands that got awful, got really bad because they pretty much changed their sound, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do have it kind of sprinkled here and there, and a lot of mine who like changed it for worse, in for worse,
hmm
necessarily didn't. Like the first band I'm going to talk about, I actually really liked. Like they changed their sound so, like, it's almost like a different band,
Yeah.
because of how much they changed their sound, and their stuff previous to their old sound they've completely erased off the face of the earth.
hmm
But I still really like it, and a lot of fans actually don't really like it, which is
Fair.
crazy.
Hey, to make you feel better about like forgetting that you did an episode about the only reason why I remembered that we already did something like that is because I remember having a regret about not bringing up the band Muse, even though they're not really metal,
Oh
but like
yeah, I
they're
I
like
guess they count.
they can, but like that is like a huge band for me that went from like fuck yeah to oh no, like they completely like went pop. And the amount of hatred that I have for them now is just that's enough for
Yeah.
me to remember forever. Like I
When was
just
their
go ahead.
when was their last record?
I think they put out one like 3 years ago.
Hmm.
But it was like I don't keep track of it because it's like I've given up, man.
Yeah.
I've given them a few tries of like, oh, maybe they'll come back, but like now, unless somebody approaches me and says, Nate, you got to hear this new Muse song. It sounds just like their old stuff. I am not wasting my time. I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna waste any time like searching to see like, oh, maybe this album they went back to their old. Oh, maybe this album. Nope. Somebody's gonna have to tell me. Like that's I'm just
Yeah.
gonna miss out on it unless somebody's just like, yo, Nate, this new one is, you know, just like, you know, the old stuff.
Yeah, I do want to add on to like what you were saying with like they went pop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
actually kind of a common theme in my list, which doesn't work for everybody, but I
hmm
think does work for some bands. I'm gonna actually have two, which one doesn't and one does.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting. And how about we kick this off
Sure.
with the band I kind of hinted at in the beginning,
Sure.
and it's the record that's actually behind me right now, Pantera.
Nice.
Pantera used to be a glam metal band, if you can believe that. Did you know that?
I did not. Wow.
Yeah, Pantera used to be a glam metal band. I actually have the record behind me here. Um, their album Metal Magic. Uh, a much different aesthetic than Vulgar Display of Power or Far Beyond Driven, where it's a drill going into someone's butthole. They were a
They've come a
glam
long
metal
way.
band. They've come a very long way, and I love their glam metal stuff. Funny enough, because you have Dime, huge Kiss fan. You have Vinny and Dime are huge Kiss guys, and I believe that's where this era of Pantera comes from. It comes from their love for Kiss and glam, pretty much, and we get a really weird product, and it's definitely the fetus of Pantera, but it's still good.
Mhm.
Pantera's pretty much erased these albums off the face of the earth, but
Rightfully.
I like
That
them.
explains why I didn't know.
Yeah, they're not on Spotify though. I think the only place to really listen to them is YouTube or have a bootleg like I do. But yeah, you can't really find them anywhere. I think they're really good. Like, funny enough, like, just really great riffs. Like, it's Dime, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's still the same members, and they're doing a great job at just making music and just like stuff that's like really enjoyable. Much different sound though. And it's crazy how much they evolved into like a more, like, pretty much a thrash metal band, and just like very heavy breakdowns, very aggressive, out for blood band. The band really did a 180 from, very dressed up, very, very, we got the hair, the outfits, to like literally the opposite. Because you look at thrash metal was almost like the response to glam, where glam was all like makeup and all, looking very crazy. Where thrash comes from the complete opposite, where it's just, all these doomers in all denim bullet belts, greasy hair, just long uncombed, rat's nest. But it's it's so funny to see that within a band, because it really encapsulates like the evolution from glam metal to thrash metal. So I think that's really cool to see one band literally do that. Um, so Pantera, I think, we got Metal Magic. A Power Metal was, I believe, the first album they ever put out. But yeah, good stuff.
Nice. I'm gonna put a little disclaimer out here that don't crucify me for getting genres wrong, please.
Oh God.
Like, because like at this point, like the genres are just so mashed together. It's hard for me to keep track of like what exactly each one is. Like, what are the underlining like tones that define the genre? So my genre is my genre naming is probably less than accurate, but you know what?
Okay.
Like if you hold that against me, go fuck yourself, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
So
The first
Grimes.
band the first band I want to talk about is Protest a Hero. I talk about them a lot. Just because they're up there as like my favorite band. Um they had two EPs that they released before like their big album Kazaya. Um, and even so, Kazaya had a lot of like this like skate punk feel to it, like punk rock, kind of like you know it still has that feeling to it. But once they started working on their album Fortress, they became like full like progressive metal, um, with like some nodes of like maybe post hardcore a little bit, but it's really easy to hear in the first two demos that they did how like they have like the whiny, screamy vocals that are just like a little rough, but the songwriting's it's punk. And then you have Kazaya, which is like the first album that they came out with, um, which still has that like punk feeling, but it seems like they're now getting more into progressive metal. Um, of course, with the vocals, it still sounds kind of post-hardcore, um, which I don't have anything wrong with it. I think Kazaya is a fantastic album, but when you get to Fortress, it's like, god damn, they did so much. They did so
Yeah.
much for Fortress, and that's why I talk about it so often. It's like Fortress is one hell of an album. I recommend everybody listen to it because it's just like it's it's really well done. Like all of the musicianship is just top notch. I don't think there's a single song on that album that I'm like, I can skip. It's like it's just all fucking great. Um,
Mm.
and they kind of took that with them. It's not to say that they carried that energy with them through the rest of their albums, because like the album they put out after that, I believe, is Scurrilous, which was like less than great. Um, but still, they've continued to put out really fucking great songs after that. And I think like the reason why they're on the list, even though like they went up and then they went down and then they went, like it's not consistently like, oh, they found their stride and they're now each album's better than the last. I would say they they found their sound, and they own it,
Mm.
and it's just really interesting stuff. They always release interesting stuff, and I'm always looking forward to like the stuff that they put out.
Cool.
So yeah, I would say Protest of Heroes. Check them out at your local grocery store with a box of cereal or whatever you want. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of bands, especially metal bands, like you get a lot of that transition from like almost like punk
Yeah.
to a whole different refined sound. And that's crazy. That's the first I've heard from like punk to like prog.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
that's
I'm not.
that's that's quite a
Yeah, I
jump.
mean, I love punk. I really do. Like, it's got like that grittiness to it, that
Yeah.
raw quality to it. I'm definitely not like anti, punk, because like that shit rips. But when you compare it to like more refined, like the things that they did on Fortress, you can be like, oh, okay, I can see why like the raw and kind of sloppiness like works against them, because like if you show them to somebody, like you always have that in the back of your mind of like, yeah, I know the vocals are really scratchy and screechy, and I know the quality of the guitars aren't like really great, and like I know the sound quality is not the best.
Yeah.
And like all those things count against, especially vocals, man. Vocals are like the biggest thing that kill bands when you show them to somebody. Like if
Yeah,
if they
definitely.
don't if they don't
Definitely.
gel with the vocals, then it doesn't matter how fucking awesome the drummer is. It doesn't matter how fucking awesome the guitar, or bassists are.
Yeah.
That they will immediately hear the vocals and be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, and that's the case with a lot of metal, and I do want to bring up like a little honorable mention right here.
sure.
That's probably like one of the sharpest transitions out of any band we'll probably talk about. But I do want to say one uh that might, be a little more sharper is Ministry. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ministry. They're an industrial metal band.
Yeah, I am familiar. I'm trying to remember what tracks I've heard, because I definitely
Jesus
remember.
built my hot rod. That's one of them. They have
I
very
think
weird names. But Ministry's first album was actually pop, like completely a pop
really,
album. And then they turned into an industrial metal band. Like you don't
really,
get any sharper than that. And there must be another band that has a sharper transition, but like that's crazy. Their first album, you don't even know, it doesn't even sound anything like Ministry. And then they just said, just screw it, get the samples. Um,
nice.
but I do kind of want to follow your theme right there of like a band transitioning into prog. Death, the death metal band. Their first record, Scream Bloody Gore, is very traditional, very very standard death metal. Really awesome vocals, but it's like it's nothing out of the ordinary. And then they definitely, if you compare their first one to Sounds of Perseverance, it's very night and day. It's so much proggier, very long songs. I think every song off that record's like 6 to 7 minutes compared to like a 4 minute track list for each one. Um,
Mhm.
it's just crazy how much a band, you know, you can see them almost get like better. Like Death, and don't get me wrong, like even Scream Bloody Gore era Death, like still amazing musicians. But then you look at like Sound of Perseverance, it's like, Jesus Christ, these guys practice a lot. Like just
Yeah.
really awesome. Everyone on that record rips. The solos, the riffs, the drumming, the singing, the bass lines, the time changes, the song structure, the chord progressions, just insanely cool and awesome. And it's like the first time I think that's ever been really done in death metal, where someone takes that format. And it's like we're Metallica, where it's, they started very punky with Kill 'Em All, and then Injustice for All, it's got very proggy. Death kind of had that same parallel where like they started out very in your face death metal, then became like this prog machine, which is awesome. And a lot of people, a lot of metalheads will like really uh bash prog, and like all the math rock stuff. Like, look at Death,
Hmm.
man. Death was brutal. It wasn't very very Tool like in terms of like, a song's like a math equation or whatever, but like they still have that element of like crazy progression. And a lot of people, like when they think the prog, they're like, oh, Dream Theater and Animals as
Yeah.
Leaders and what. Death, man. Death rips. Death is awesome. The band. But
I like that you had to clarify. Like
yeah.
just so we know.
But that's talk about evolution of sound right there. Still
Nice.
metal, but much harder to play. All right,
Dig
that
it.
is my second pick.
All right. Well, keeping with that, I think my next pick will be Between the Buried and Me. Um, they're another like progressive metal band per se. Um, I think they started off way more metalcore though, which
Yeah.
it's like it's not bad, but I think what I appreciate that they did is eventually they got more experimental and they got more into like technical metal, and they combined like the thing for me the thing for me with what makes a good progressive metal band is the ability to just kind of weave in between genres. Like you don't have like a full like 100% death metal song. You don't have like a full like black metal song. It like starts one way and it kind of just evolves. It has like the nice contrast of like, so the album that did it for me is Colors. I've talked about it before.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
the album starts off with like just a piano part, just piano. And you think like, okay, when you think metal, I I would think that beside the accordion, maybe like piano is one of the last instruments you would think for starting
Yeah.
off an album. You'd be like, okay, like that's interesting. But when you just hear a piano chord and just him singing with just the piano, and then heavy drums come in and it starts to rock out, and then it just kind of spirals into this like blast beat. You're just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a
Yeah.
ride, man. And I think that's what I really like that they did. They were kind of all over the place in their first album. I think like most bands, what it comes down to is that they really got better with their instruments and they really got more experimental with what they wanted to do. They were kind of more like math rock, like metalcore, and it was okay, but nothing really stood out. It wasn't anything worth talking about. And
Mm,
then they come out with I think it's Alaska. I can't remember. I think yeah, Alaska. They have some pretty pretty good tracks on it. But again, you have some of the tracks that kind of dip back into their older stuff. You're like, okay, that's fine. But
mm,
then Colors comes out and you're like, oh, fuck, dude, this whole album's a ride. Again, just like Protest the Heroes Fortress. Every song on Colors is unskippable. Unfortunately, they're all connected together. So if you do kind of put them in your shuffle, it's kind of weird because like
Yeah.
you get to the end and you're like, oh, it's going to go into the next song. And you're like, it doesn't because you're on random. But
Yeah.
yeah, between
Mm.
the Buried and Me, that's my pick. I know it's like kind of all over the place, but I just fucking love that they went experimental and went more technical than
Yeah, yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, Dream Theater does a lot of that too, where it's like one song goes into the next song.
yeah.
Which I don't mind, but yeah, it'll mess up a playlist pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right, my next one's gonna be thrash metal. Um,
Nice.
can you guess what band out of the big four? It is the big four is Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax.
I was gonna guess Megadeth.
It's actually Anthrax,
Mm,
which,
surprise.
yeah, because we know Metallica did the whole
Mhm.
load thing. We know Megadeth went Risk.
Mhm.
Slayer does have like a really weird album in the middle of their
Yeah.
discography. um Anthrax, man, they really liked hip hop and rap. Um they loved it so much that they actually attempted it.
I mean,
They have this album. I believe the album's called I'm the Man, and it's all of them, with like backwards hats on, a spray painted wall behind them, and it's very like rap inspired, and they have this rap song called I'm the Man, and it is the worst thing I've ever heard. And like, listen, man, like I like a lot of like I'm a big MF Doom fan. I like Public Enemy. I like even like the old Ice-T stuff. So it's not like, it's rap, it sucks.
yeah.
Earl Sweatshirt, I'm a big fan of, but it just it just doesn't work. Just
Not
because.
not even Bring the Noise.
Oh God. Yeah, there you go too. I think that has like the first "Yeah Boy" in it, because there's this point in the song where he goes, "Yeah Boy." It's like,
Yeah.
that is that the
Yeah.
first one?
I think so. I don't know. I just know it made itself onto the Tony Hawk
Early
Pro Skater
80s.
2 soundtrack.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
But really weird. I'm glad no other band of the big four went in that direction. I'd hate to see Dave Mustaine rapping. Actually, that might be kind of
That
cool.
might be kind of
Um,
cool.
but you know, we have like Dave had Ice T on his album, this the new one, and like it was fine. I don't think it really mixed well, but like it didn't ruin the song at all. But that, like, I guess, who did it also. There's this thrash metal band called Sacred Reich, and on their album The American Way, they have like this whole song about how it's like, don't just be into metal, guys. We got to be into more genres. And it's like they're kind of experimenting with stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I don't it's a weird thing, because like I love, and it's like it makes me sound like an almost like an elitist, or like a very narrow-minded kids, like, keep that crap out of metal, but at the
Mhm.
same time it just doesn't mix. and
Yeah.
and it's because we know what happens when you combine those two. When you combine metal and rap, bad things happen, man. Bad things happen. It worked with Body Count, but that's it. Let's keep Limp Biscuit, man. Let's
You
stay
really
away
hate new
from that.
metal. You really
I
hate
do
new
not
metal.
like
So
new
it's really
metal.
funny.
We might possibly have a new metal episode of this podcast coming out at some point. We recorded it like a year ago, literally.
Yeah.
um it's been
But you just sat
in the
on it because you're like, I
works.
fucking hate this.
You have a guy editing it right now. But
Okay.
it's new metal. Keep it out of rap, out of metal,
But there's
and
not
keep metal out of
one new
rap.
metal. There's no new metal song in the history of new metal that you're like, okay, that that one's kind of okay. That gets a pass.
Uh I'll uh I'll say this about Limp Bizkit. They're good at covers. That's what
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
say.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
Um, they covered a, Metallica song actually.
What?
Welcome
Wait,
Home.
really?
Yeah, they covered a song off Master of Puppets, and
When?
I'm like, this is gonna suck. I listened to it. I'm like, oh my god, this is actually really really good.
Is this
It's
new?
so good. No, it was like celebrating the anniversary of the record. Or I think it was
Uh,
no, I think it was Metallica got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a bunch of
oh yeah,
bands
a
did
bunch of
covers.
bands did. Yeah, I
Yeah, they
remember that. I
did
don't remember Limp
Welcome
Bizkit being on
Home,
there.
what is it? Whatever. It's the Welcome Home song off Puppets. And it sounds really good.
That's
Um
crazy.
which it really, like, it's hard to even say that sentence.
I
um
mean, hey, I prefer their faith to George Michael's faith.
yeah, which is again, like, it's just crazy because it's like they're that band that, and I don't want to turn this into a Limp Bizkit episode, but like
Fine.
they're that I did their sound ever evolve, Limp Bizkit?
um,
No, right? It
no,
just
not
stayed
really.
awful the whole time. Yeah, that's what I thought. um, but I don't know, man. It just, for me, rap and metal just doesn't mix. And
That's fair.
I think Body Count, the band Body Count, really did an amazing job at balancing the two. But other than that, it's like the whitest thing, like just the trashiest. I don't know, man. It's something you have to kill grunge, you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
it's rough. But yeah, Anthrax.
All right, cool. Next on my list, let me see real quick. Limp Bizkit. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's
Did I
corn.
give you a heart attack?
A little
This
bit.
one's kind of interesting. Um, because this band kind of starts off as like I don't know what you would call them. Post-hardcore, maybe. It's the band is Thrice.
Huh.
Um, so their first like few albums are like post-hardcore, pretty much metal, whatever you want to call it. Um, but the weird thing about it is they came out with this album called The Alchemy Index, um, where they kind of went like, I don't know what the hell to call it. It's like folky.
Huh.
Like it went more like folk music, and it is fucking fantastic, which is really odd because the change from
Yeah, that's
post,
wild.
that's like one of the biggest jumps ever. I mean, talk about throwing an ice cube into a jacuzzi, man. That's like,
That's way more than uh Ministry,
yeah,
right?
I would
Yeah,
think so,
folk
man.
to
Like,
punk to folk.
so they have this album off the Alchemy Index called Earth, and it's mostly like acoustic guitar and like it's so fucking good. I don't know. It's so weird because like you think about like a post-hardcore band and like you know how like high energy they are, and then think about like your dad like coming in your room while that stuff is happening, like just the pain that they were like, oh, this is why do you listen to this garbage, blah, blah, blah. But then you put on an album like Alchemy Index, Earth, and your dad comes into your room and says, I like this, what is this? And you're like, whoa, like now all of a sudden it's like completely different, man.
Yeah.
um it's more, I know I'm gonna get shit for putting them on the list because it's like one of the bands that went um kind of more heavier to lighter, but it worked for them. I think it fit because I think the whole reason why they did it is because the singer um, had problems with his voice. Like, and that's a big thing. That's a big common thing with a lot of bands. It's like metal bands, especially, they don't scream correctly and they completely ruin their vocals and then they have to reinvent themselves. But in this rare occasion for Thrice, I think it worked. And kind of they did kind of go back to like their more heavier sounds like after Alchemy Index. Um, but they never went full post-hardcore. Like they kind of kept it pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Like I really like bands that take risks and it works.
I love that too. I really like, and I don't want to make a whole segment on it, but with like Metallica, like
Yeah.
Load or Reload, like I love that. I love that risk. I like that the band went experimental. We did lose Metallica out of that, but at the same time, like it's an awesome what if, and I love seeing bands just like, evolve music because they want to, not from like, public pressure
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatnot. Um,
It's definitely hard with like the hindsight and whatnot to be like, oh, they changed, but I feel like if we got 9 more Master of Puppets, it would have gotten really stale. It
yeah,
would have
and
just been like,
there would have
okay,
been a slow decline, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Where if you keep evolving, and I think there are bands out there like I guess like King Gizzard. I hate to I really hate to bring them up, on a metal podcast. They do have a thrash metal album. I did a whole episode on it. Um, but you know, they're on the time we're recording this, they have 23 records.
hmm
Um, each there's not a decline in quality at all because they keep evolving their sound so much.
yeah,
Because of a lot of bands, what they'll do is, they can evolve their sound, but they're limited by a genre, and there's
yeah,
only so much you can do in that genre until you're like really reaching and just evolving just to evolve. Where why I think Gizzard is cool is because they're not just looking at genres, they're looking at the art form, music.
yeah,
There's a lot of play space in that. So that's why I think that band is just one hit after another with their records. And like, they're toying around with like a jam band thing right now, but like they're a psych band, they rap, but they do a lot of metal stuff, funny enough. They had a metal song on a couple hours ago, albums ago. They have a whole thrash metal album, which I think is fantastic. But yeah, like that's the thing. A lot of bands, there's only so much to do, and then once you hit that wall, you hit it hard.
yeah.
Um, Saint Anger, you know what I mean?
hmm
Um, but I don't know, man. But yeah, uh, I have a I have a pick I want to talk about.
Go
Um,
for it.
Now I'll start with Kiss, because my one after that is a good, because I love comparing Kiss to a certain other band. And I will on my next turn. But Kiss, all right, they started super hard rock, almost pretty much metal, and it's like, oh my god, like Cold Gin, uh Black Diamond, like this is awesome. This is like almost like doomy rock. It's sick. And then their next album they come out with, um, Hotter Than Hell, which is my favorite Kiss album, almost leans on that more and becomes heavier and becomes, there's like doom on that album. It's really, really awesome. And then they evolved and they evolved and they got a little more commercial, a little more commercial. And then we got songs like Lick It Up. and the chorus is just lick it up. I'm not even gonna sing it, but how could you, you can say, I like lick it up. I like the weirdest song ever. That is like the most glam metal, like stereotypical. You would think Steel Panther wrote that song, "Lick It Up."
Oh yeah,
It
yeah, I
sounds.
could see
It's
that.
like the song. It's the soundtrack of like some guy driving a Hummer, taking steroids, going to Gold's Gym, having a midlife crisis. "Lick It Up" is such a, oh my god, it's a rough one. I really cannot understand how people defend this song, but Brandon has a good chorus. It's a little too cheesy. Lick it. Is it like a sexual thing? What's he licking up? Is it like is it, I don't want to get too graphic, but like it's a little too the song is a little too much for me.
Yeah,
You got like
I mean
cold gin.
that's what Steel
Y-
Panther is for.
Yeah, which that's
Yeah,
that's what I'm
when
saying. It
when you
feels like
expect it, when you
where it's
expect it,
like
it's
just
not
like
as jarring. But when it's like
it,
Kiss, and you're like,
I
okay,
I think like I wouldn't be surprised if like Steel Panther was born from that song, because
yeah,
that
I can see
song
that.
is like sounds like that song. It sounds like literally a parody of glam metal,
Yeah,
where it's like just all the tropes just dialed up to 11. Like, oh my god, I cannot. I had my roommate listened to that song a lot, and I'm like, how could you? You don't know Going Blind. You don't know Parasite, but Lick It Up. I don't know, man. Lick It Up. Lick It Up. And Kiss also has that Bit of Anger reminded me of their concept album as well. Um whatever the hell it's called. Elder Hand. Um
oh
the
yeah,
Elder. Music from the Elder.
yeah.
Because it's supposed to be from a movie that never came out.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
remember you
it's
talking
like,
about that.
yeah, it's like, what? And it's like, people with these Kiss. All right, I'll get into, well, after your pick, I'll get into the next band. But like, Kiss, they should have stayed uh to their hard rock and rock roots. It's my pick.
Sometimes you take the risk and you fall.
Yeah, just like Megadeth took a risk.
True. I see what you did there. My next band is very underneath things. So the band's called Proceed, and they are so less known that they don't even have a Wikipedia page.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I wanted to bring them up because so Proceed has an album called Curious Electric, and it's another one of those albums where you can listen to it all the way, or I can listen to it all the way through, and it's just like it's really interesting. It's really good. Um, but the thing that makes it interesting is that the singer, uh, I think his name's Dan Lancaster. He's produced like a bunch of different bands, like a lot of more pop bands. But what's interesting is he kind of brings more poppy vocals to metal, and it's like an interesting
Hmm.
fusion. um it doesn't necessarily feel like it's whining in the sense that like post hardcore is. Not that all post hard I'm not saying post hardcore is whining. Settle down out there. I'm just saying, like, as a, you know the best way to describe it is that, you know um
Yeah.
so their first album, Proceed, was more like death metal, or I don't even know what the hell to call it. And then the Curious Electric comes out and it's a little bit more poppy. It's fucking great. And then they disband. They just vanished off of the face of the earth. And like they only have the one album that's quote unquote the good one, but I've listened to it so fucking much. Like it's weird because it's not even like a full length, like 10, I think it's almost like an EP. Uh let me
Hmm.
let me double check that because I know
How
okay, so technically it's an album, but it only has 7 songs.
okay.
And like their first song is only 1 minute. And it's like it's an intro, it like gets you into, and you could say that it kind of has like emo feel to it, but basically what I'm getting at is the vocals went from just full on screaming, can't really hear anything, full like aggressive, like inaudible, to more poppy vocals over really fucking awesome riffs. So it's very intriguing because you're like, wait a minute, this is pop. This is like the opposite of metal. Like, but it's with metal. And you're like, it's it's just something different, man. And I think it deserves a little bit more listeners, Like it's not going to be for everybody, but I feel obligated to bring up bands that are a little bit under the radar, a little bit, so to speak, because I mean that's what podcasts do, right? They unearth little gems, and they're like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
would have never fucking heard of this band. I only knew it because my cousin who was crazy about downloading metal. I mean, obtaining music legally, put it on my iPod, and it just like came up, and I was like, I really like this, and it's like, well, that's their only album. It's like, and then Spotify comes around and I'm like, wait, they have an album before. Oh, yep, it's their only album. And in fact, I went on Spotify, and Curious Electric is the only album they list. They don't even list the old one. So,
Wow.
because it's
It's
just like,
almost like a Pantera thing.
yeah. So
Wow.
proceed in one word.
Cool.
If you want
How
to
do you
check it
spell
out,
that?
Curious Electric. It's Proceed.
Oh, okay. Well,
And then
makes
their
sense.
album is Curious Electric.
Cool.
So
Nice. Cool.
it's a good band.
Yeah. All right. Now going to like from a very underground band to a very, very popular band. Well, a lot of people believe are too popular. Um, Ghost.
Okay.
Very very fitting for this episode. So all right. Ghost dropped their first record, Opus Eponymous. It's like, oh, what's this spooky music album look thing? Because it's like, it's a castle and it's like a ghoul guy
Yeah.
going like that. And it's like, oh, it's like Scooby-Doo music. That's cool. And it's literally just every it's all just spooky songs. It's every song mentions Satan. There's not a single song that
As
doesn't.
it should.
There's literally Death Newell. There's the chorus is literally 666.
Oh.
It's a pretty evil album. It is a doom metal record.
It looks like the album cover looks very death metal.
Does it? I
I
guess
mean,
it could be death metal.
but you're
Um,
right. It does have that Scooby Doo kind of feel to it. So it's like
yeah.
somewhere between Scooby Doo and, and death metal.
And when this album came out, it was passed along a lot in the metal community, in the doom community.
Yeah.
It's like this is a sick uh like band. And then Ghost dropped their second album, um, which is a name I cannot pronounce. And they kind of, get a little experimental. They do have some like doom stuff, almost some like some B-sides of their first record. but like they get a little weird with like, you know, using some like circus music in some of their songs. They even have like some surf metal. There's a song called Zombie Queen off their second, and it goes into like this surf, like super reverby bridge, second half of the song thing. And it's really weird. And a lot of people are like, all right, screw this. And then eventually they became more and more pop. You got Square Hammer, which came out with I think that dropped on an EP. Meliora came out, and then Prequel. Prequel was probably the pushing point for most people, where you got like literal, almost pretty much just pop songs. But but it's very like hair metal esque,
Yeah.
and glam. But the thing is, there's a lot of modern elements in it, so a lot of people are instantly turned off by it.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
that.
but the thing, and then there's their new record, which people are like, I don't even want to hear it. I'm over it. Which, their new one does have, compared to their first one, it's night and day. You literally have a glam epic on it. You have like a very theatrical, almost like theater opener. Um, you have like almost like a Bon Jovi inspired song, Spillways, which starts with a piano. Um, it's and then Call Me Little Sunshine or whatever is like almost like their Enter Sandman. Um, it's a really crazy evolution. A lot of people will be like, well, that's stupid. This band could have been our generation's Kiss, the next generation's Kiss. Can you imagine that? But no, they went, pop. Oh yeah, they went pop. Where have I heard that before in a band? Oh yeah, Kiss. With Ghost, yeah, you have very almost poppy stuff like Mariana
Mariana
Cross,
Cross.
which everyone
Yeah.
knows because it's all over TikTok. And it's like,
Hmm.
if I hear Mariana Cross one more time, listen, man, if Lick It Up was as popular as Mariana Cross was on TikTok, you would shoot yourself. Lick It Up. The thing is, at least with Mariana Cross, it's very in theme with Ghost. It
Hmm.
still keeps those cool evil lyrics. It still keeps the vibe of Ghost, where Kiss was just like let's lick it up. Let's like screw talking about gin and like really cool weird lyrics, like it's just I feel like go Kiss really dropped the ball. And in terms, if you to compare the two, Ghost has a way better track record than Kiss. And I'm saying that I'll die on that hill. um there's no music from the Elder, there's no Lick It Up. Ghost's songs have evolved very organically. It's not like they're dumping lyrical themes and ideas to have mass appeal. It's not like Ghost is like, hey, let's just drop the whole Pope thing and the whole Papa thing and the whole ghoul thing. Let's just take all the makeup off and just be dudes. Like, no, they're just, they're in it. I respect it. I respect them. A lot of people call them poser metal. I think that's ridiculous. I think they're amazing. They're a extremely revolutionary band, metal band. I think they should be much more respected than they are, let alone they are already extremely popular. They're doing like stadiums already. Um, and this band like really started, and like this is a Ghost is like a 12-year-old band, which is crazy. But I think Ghost is going to be held up very, very high when we're older and Ghost is our Kiss. And then you have the generation growing up where Ghost and Kiss are old bands. And a lot of people are going to be like, were they both, from the same era? And then you're going to say,
Yeah,
no.
I can see
Um,
that.
but, we have a lot of people who have so much nostalgia tied to the bands they listened to in high school, ripping darts, getting hammered. Now they're old, their life's miserable. They hear Ghost, they're like, it wasn't like Kiss. Well, you have it literally uh Paul Stanley said it best. The reason Kiss doesn't make music anymore is because his theory is that Kiss fans, are so nostalgic to Kiss's old music that they could never, no, even if the stuff is better than the old material, they could never capture that again. Because all these people who were there for Kiss in the beginning have grown up with the band. And it's like, that's the thing, you have that nostalgia. So that's why they're like, we're not making any music. We've done it. We can't ever we can't give you, nostalgia back. Like,
Yeah.
and I would hate for Kiss to like, play the game of like, let's try extremely hard to recapture um our first three records or whatever,
Because it
or
just comes
five.
out forced.
Exactly. And that's the problem a lot of people have with Metallica's new single, where it's like they're just trying to recapture Kill 'Em All.
It does feel forced. That song
Yeah.
is extremely forced.
And very, very like just processed and
Hmm.
but I don't know, man. Like that's my theory with a lot of these metalheads with Ghost. It's just a bunch of people who, they see Ghost. It's like, well, you guys don't know what it was like. Ghost
Yeah.
isn't it. You guys missed it. Ghost wasn't it. You guys missed a train. It was
Yeah.
Kiss. It was it was Sabbath and all these, but it's like, no, metal has a new life and it will always evolve and will always have. Ghost is doing something very different, very new. Yes, you have songs like Griftwood, which sounds like it was ripped straight off a Van Halen album, but at the same time, I think it's really cool how this band takes a lot of different elements of metal and does their own
Yeah.
versions of it. And there's very, very original Ghost songs. And it's like, well, I might as well just listen to Van Halen then. Well, Ghost
Yeah.
has a very interesting flair and take on some of these bands that, you know, people started with and got them into metal. But yeah, Ghost, that's my pick.
Dude, that's a hell of a pick, dude. I can't
Yeah.
follow up with that. You did a
I
show.
went on a little too long on that,
You
I
did an
feel like.
episode all about ghosts, and that piqued my interest. And then also you posted something on Instagram about ghosts, and I'm seeing like a dude that kind of looks like King Diamond.
Yeah. Yeah, Papa Emeritus. That's the thing. Like people would probably crucify you for saying that too. Like, how dare you
I mean,
compare Diamond with.
it's kind of a popular opinion,
Yeah,
but
but
I'm
it
not
is like
saying
it's
they're
corpse
different.
paint. It's corpse paint. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's not like King Diamond was the first ever to paint his face like that. It's not. I'm not saying at all that Ghost ripped him off. In fact, I think they're both really unique. I just was going on Look Alone when I first saw him. I was expecting that sound, and when I just like popped on Spotify and listened to Mary on a
Yeah.
Cross, I was like, wow, like this is like got like this whole like retro vibe to it. And it's like it feels like this song is decades old, but
Yeah, yeah. It's inspired
it's
from like 60s psych.
yeah,
And like
but it's
garage.
like it's very refreshing and very new. And not to mention, you cannot disagree that his theatrics are just as like inspiring as the music. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, like they put a lot, like, yeah.
You
So
bring up a great point too with looking at the band and it's like, whoa, is this like a blackened,
yeah,
death band? Is this like what sound is going to come out of this? And you
exactly.
listen to it and it's like, oh, this is garbage.
I
That's what
like it.
happens. That's what happens with a lot of people.
Oh,
Um
okay. Well, yeah, when you
and
expect it to be like
it's
when you're
it's
narrow-minded and you're like, I only like this type of music. I guess
yeah,
you're gonna
when
be like
your
that.
whole catalog of music is just like underground black metal, you know,
I just can't. Yeah, I just can't get behind those people, man. I'm
'cause-
not. I'm not like afraid of pissing any of those people off in these podcasts because like I can never connect with them because it's just like I'm so all over the place with different sounds and everything. I'm like, I don't understand how you could just stick to just death metal. Like
yeah, and like
I
don't get me
like death
wrong,
metal,
I
but
love me
yeah,
too, yeah. And like black metal as well.
black metal, yeah,
But you know, you look at a band like Behemoth,
yeah.
where you know, I would hear them and think Ghost makes that kind of music. And I think the issue with Ghost is a lot of people were extremely turned off because they had certain expectations for that band. Um, but listen, man, if Ghost was, you know, imagine if this band started in like the 80s or like the late 70s. Oh my, I'd love to like see how different the metal community would handle them. Maybe you never know, maybe the same, but it's you never know. All right.
I was just looking at my phone because the the thing that I remind is like there's a genre called power electronic
Oh
that is just
God.
like I'm like that's like not saying that's what death metal or black metal is like, but like if you just listen to just power electronic metal, I just feel like you would go insane.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds like I'd go insane. That sounds
okay,
really crazy.
so my next pick is Catatonia. Um, is a band. I forget where they're. I forget where they're from, but anyway, they start more of like a more death feel to them, and they go
Cool.
more into the doom
Sick.
and um it's just great. I feel like um Micro Aquafelt might have worked with them in the early stages or when they started to change their sound. Um but I don't know, I feel bad that I'm just like I like you gave like a very in-depth
No, it's all
like
good.
ghost thing and I'm like I really like Catatonia. Like
Well, that's fair enough. Like the thing is with Ghost, like I have so much to say about them because not only am I like a fanatic of that band, but it's like they're oh my god, there's so much to talk about Ghost, like how divided the community is on that band, how crazy their image is.
yeah.
Um, you
Okay,
know,
so I got confirmation that Micro Aquafelt of Opeth um, was in the band early on. And if you listen to their older stuff, you can definitely hear like, okay, yeah, you can hear it, his influences.
mm,
Um, but they just keep on evolving. I think like a couple years ago they put out an album and I listened to it and it really fucking hit the spot, especially during a pandemic where you're just like every day feels like a fucking rainy day.
yeah.
It's just like it just fits the mood so good. But
That was the
they,
best, man. Just
yeah,
like the pandemic, it's like, what albums am I gonna listen to today? I miss that.
yeah. But I think they evolve their songs pretty nicely. I think their albums
Cool.
consistently change pretty well. I think they got this more singing involved, and I think that is really helpful because again, I think it could just be another vocal thing. Like he could have heard his vocals and had to change too. Again, that's a super common thing for metal, but
Yeah.
his voice is really good. I'm surprised. I'm kind of upset that I didn't bring up Catatonia for good metal singers for
Mm,
like for that episode, but yeah,
cool.
Catatonia,
Cool.
good for a rainy, snowy day.
I'm gonna keep the theme me saying you saying very like, maybe lesser known, not as popular bands, and me just doing like the most popular, well-known bands. um Black Sabbath.
Never heard of them.
We have a very nice yin and yang thing going on right now. um um and I also want to, as an honorable mention before them, bring up this band called that I like, and I'll meet you there with a kind of maybe not underground but lesser known doom band. They're called Stoned Jesus.
I've heard of them.
So you oh really awesome. Yeah, Stone Jesus. They started very doom metal. Like they were almost like a Black Sabbath parody because of how this the much the singer sounded like Ozzy, and just like their whole style of playing and song structure was very Sabbath like. And then they pretty much just like overnight became a sludge metal band, which I dig, and their stuff's still cool, but I'll always love their older stuff just because I'm such a Black Sabbath fan. They're probably my favorite band of all time. Black Sabbath, I this gives me a great excuse to talk about Black Sabbath. All right. Um, their first album is doom metal,
Yeah.
and I'll die on that hill. We get Paranoid, which is like a cool evolution of that. Um, then Master Reality, which is like even doomier, which is like, oh, sweet. And then we got Volume 4, which has changes on it. And is more rock.
Hmm.
And then they, go back in that doom again with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and um, you know, um, God, why am I Sabotage? I can't believe I was blanking on. That's like my favorite Sabbath record. And this is like probably my least favorite Sabbath album, but Technical Ecstasy, and they just pretty much go completely hard rock. And then you get Never Say Die when they're a rock band. Um, so we see this band become a rock band, which I don't mind. A lot of people dig. I love Never Say Die. I think that's an amazing album. I think it's a very underrated record, but um, I think Black Sabbath definitely mellowed out. And I'm just talking about the Ozzy years, but started very heavy, very doomy, and then just, went to, and it evolved into short songs. So you look at their first record, uh, the whole B side is one song pretty much. Yeah, the last song on their first album's 14 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, and then you have Never Say Die on their last Ozzy era one, which is a 2-minute song. So it's like they definitely almost like got commercialized. But then we got the reunion with 13 where they kind of go back to their roots. But I just can't help but bring up the evolution of Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath to Never Say Die. I think that's a pretty hard change in evolution in a band. But yeah, that's my pick. Black Sabbath.
Good. Good pick.
And I think
That was Black
that's
was Black Sabbath before Ozzy Osbourne? Like
yes.
before he went off and did his own?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you feel like his solo stuff affected Black Sabbath in any sort of way or
I think it did. It definitely affected uh the drummer, Bill Ward. It made him very depressed. Because Sabbath like blew up, Ozzy blew up. Um, and yeah, it's so Black Sabbath happened. Ozzy pretty much quit after Technical Ecstasy and then came back during the recording of Never Say Die. They recorded it, and then the band fired him.
fair?
Um, then they had Dio join, and Black Sabbath pretty much became a whole new band. Because Dio Sabbath, that's something. That's something else. That's
Hmm.
what a era Black Sabbath, and a lot of people's favorite. A lot of people hold '80s Sabbath over um Ozzy stuff. But yeah, like Ozzy, Sharon, got them together, you know, paired them up with Randy Rhoads, and boom, we got Blizzard of Oz, which we all know how that turned out. If you've ever been to a sports game, you'll know. But but
Very, very true.
but
Um,
yeah, it's like Black Sabbath, their sound has evolved so many times, but I think that even just the Ozzy years, the first run of the Ozzy years is it evolved quite a bit, and I think for the worst actually. Um, but yeah, that wraps up both of our list, right?
I want to do what do you call honorable mention? Is that what we
Okay,
decided?
yeah, yeah. What's one of your honorable
So
mentions?
we kind of talked about this on a previous episode, but I wanted to bring them up again because again, I feel like there's something. Igor.
Oh
Um,
God.
I mean, all right. So hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. One of the things so if you remember correctly, I kind of talked about Igor, and then like at the end, like my internet cut out, and then you had to wrap up the episode or something like that. But one of the
Yeah.
things you said, one of the things that I really wanted to touch on was that the
Okay.
thing the thing about Igor is that they're very different, and they're always doing something fucking weird and pushing the envelope. They started
It-
off like pretty different, but I want to say, like, in terms of the future of metal, I feel like it's a contender because there's only so much you can do with power chords, and you know
yeah, like you're right. Like
it, it's gonna have to go more avant-garde. I know it's really takes an iron stomach to listen to them. I know, but man, they have metal songs that start off with a fucking like all, all of these sorts of different instruments, but an accordion of all things. It's just like just to hear a blast beat with an accordion going like that. It's really it's
imagine
it's pretty funny.
imagine someone, it's like 1970, we got someone who listens to Paranoid to death. I guess did I have Maiden was later, but like big Kiss
Mhm.
fan, big Sabbath fan. Like, oh, I love heavy metal. And then you time travel back in time and you go, you want to hear what heavy metal sounds like in 50 years? And they go, yeah. And you play Igor.
Yeah, there'll be suicides, but that's okay. Like I mean, like the
His head
thing.
explodes.
So I guess for me, it's just I always want to hear people doing something different. I know like people put such value on like, oh, there really is something like about creating an earworm where it's just like the same four chord songs that have been around for decades. Um,
AC/DC.
and like every single song by ACDC is like just a carbon copy of the last song they did.
Yeah.
Um, and there is safety in that. But I don't think that we ever progressed forward or got any really amazing results by people playing it safe. I think like
Yeah.
we'll never have a band like the Beatles because again, they did all sorts of weird shit that was really different for their time. And once you do it,
Yeah.
you can't surprise people again. But I think with Igor, there's this you don't know what they're gonna do. You like they resample shit. They have a chicken playing a piano in one song. They just have like really weird shit that they do, and it's just like that to me is interesting. You're like,
Yeah, it's
okay,
it's definitely interesting. Okay, I'll give you that. It's definitely
it's
interesting.
too much for you to stomach, though, isn't it?
I I think interesting is a great term for it because I've known about it, Like you remind me, but like someone like in college showed me it. Um, and I was like, what is this? I forget who did. Maybe I was at a party. I had a little too much to drink. I was like, what is this? And then, you come here dropping that name again. And you sent me the video, and I didn't know who they were when you were talking about them. And I just saw the thumbnail and I'm like, oh my God, it's Igor. I knew
Was it
exactly because
the
I've seen that music video.
which one was it?
Um,
Was it the new noise or whatever?
yeah, yeah, with all the
Okay.
animated 3D people. Like
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah,
because I've seen like that music video
yeah.
floating around, and I saw it at a party. But here it's back to haunt me.
It's kind of primacy.
It is.
It's
It's
kind of like
very
a Primus feel
primacy.
to
It's
it.
like it feels like Primus, but like evolved 100 years.
Yeah, just like
Um,
if Primus put out like a
if
experimental
Primus
metal.
was on like every drug ever, you can't even
Not
say
just mushroom.
Coke,
Yeah, yeah.
not just Coke. Like it's. I do want to go back to that thing that you said about the Beatles. Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead. Uh,
Rest in peace.
yeah, it's Rip Lemmy. But Lemmy has a great quote where he was talking to this guy, and it was an interview. I think it was like someone from Anthrax he was talking to Scotty and I believe, and he goes, I remember a time before rock and roll. And he's like, what? What do you mean? And Lemmy goes, when you just had your parents' records. He's like, I remember a time before rock and roll where all there was to listen to was just like Elvis and then blues and or whatever, you know,
Hmm.
records your parents had. Um, and with the Beatles, uh, they pretty much just had their guitars and like, oh my God, we can do whatever we want. We
We
don't
could
have
even be
to.
like Elvis,
Yeah, we don't have to
which is
make
what they started off
rockabilly
being.
songs. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah,
Um, and they went crazy with it. And
yeah.
boo, people call them the best band ever, the first prog band ever, the first this, the first that. And metal is, it's that evolving. It's, and people even Helter Skelter, people are like, oh, it's the heaviest thing, the Beatles, or one of the heaviest songs ever at the time. And that's what metal's just doing. It just keeps one up in itself, and reinventing itself, which I think uh is amazing. And of course, like Igor is an example of that, which is an extreme example, but still, is an evolution of the genre.
I just feel
um
like they're worth mentioning. I know it's probably for maybe none of our listeners. Like I bet they put it on. They're like, this is too much. It's way too experimental. I get
it's
it.
crazy. I like, don't listen to it sober. That's my advice.
How
it's
can you
it's
listen?
an
I can't.
acquired taste, Igor.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I think that's everything. Like Metallica, obviously.
Yeah.
I didn't like.
Tool. We could talk
Yeah,
about Tool.
Tool. Yeah.
We could talk
But all
about
right, I think
Tool.
this. Oh my God! Wait, did we talk about Tool before? I
No,
swear I brought Tool up. I think.
no,
I
we
think I
never have
I, I
talked about
think I
Tool.
brought Tool up. Oh, I swear I did. I compared some stupid band to Tool. Um, I think I did.
Fair.
All right, let's just pretend I didn't.
Okay,
All
cool.
right, we did not.
Bye.
Tool wasn't on the list.
Sweet.
All right. Well, this was awesome,
Yeah.
Nate.
Fucking
Thanks for coming on. Great
fucking
list as
blast for having
always.
me. Thanks for
Um,
having me.
do you have anything you want to plug?
Uh no.
Listen to
I mean,
Igor.
I want to I mean I'm always trying to like come up with so like just behind the scenes I'm always trying to like introduce like lesser known bands because like I don't want to be like talking about Protest a Hero every single episode, like so like but I was like, oh, like I grew up listening to like a lot of different bands and I didn't know like a lot of people didn't know them. Like I figured Catatonia would be like everybody knows Catatonia.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, yeah,
nice.
I just wanted to talk about weird shit because I'm that's just my thing, man. I like different stuff.
Me too. I'll drink to that.